we see that also happening in other areas, in other industries. And we have taken a very vertical approach, which is to say, look, can we focus on every large industry that contributes to Indonesia's GDP? And can we look at companies and founders that are building to either get rid of inefficiencies, get rid of supply chain problems, get rid of financial products and lending, or something else? And those are the kind of founders that we want to work with.
Visi Talks kembali hadir bersama saya Yeni Yusra, dan kali ini kita akan berbincang-bincang dengan Karan Mohla, partner dari B Capital. Hi Karan, how are you?
Hi Yeni, very good. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for having the time also for the Daily Social. I know how busy you are, but before we dive into the conversation, maybe you can introduce yourself and maybe give us a slight information about B Capital.
Sure. No, very happy to do that. So I'm a partner at B Capital. I head our early stage investments in India and Southeast Asia, which is under a separate fund in B Capital's growth fund, and it's called the Ascent Fund. Ascent Fund is basically an early stage fund focused in the US and India, Southeast Asia for early stage investments. We're part of the B Capital platform, which has about $6.5 billion in total assets. We look at global tech innovation and companies and founders all over the world, but primarily in the US, in India, Southeast Asia, and some of the other areas. We've been investing as a firm since 2016, so this is now our 7th year. We raised the Ascent Fund earlier this year to invest only in early stage companies across the US, India, and Southeast Asia. We've been quite excited. So this is across seed through Series A primarily, with check sizes between $500,000 US to maybe $7 or $8 million US as the core. I'm very excited. So I've been in venture for about 13 years. I was previously a partner in IDG Ventures India, where we looked at early stage tech companies in India, and a little bit in Singapore, expanded into the broader Southeast Asia region. So I've been in venture for a long time. Very excited about what the future holds for us. And we are very excited about the Southeast Asia region.
Yes.
Very active for a long time from the growth fund. And now hopefully picking that up from the early stage fund as well. So very quick 2 minutes about me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Early stage is getting much more love these days, isn't it, compared to the later stage? How do you see the opportunity for the early stage startup in Indonesia in terms of funding? Because as you know, Tech Winter is very commonly mentioned by the startups community in Indonesia. Is it a fact for the early stage startup to get more fund, or doesn't make any problem whatsoever in terms of funding?
Well, I think a few things. I think the reason I think why we are very excited about Indonesia specifically is, along with India, I think those are the two largest and fastest growing digital economies in Asia, and I would argue anywhere in the world at this point. I think the explosive growth in the startup scene in Indonesia showcases the innovation and the thinking of the entrepreneur from the country. And a lot of the overall macroeconomic situation that we see in other parts of the world are probably there in Indonesia as well, but to a much lesser extent, right? So the growth and the overall drivers are very, very strong in Indonesia. For us, we've been investing in growth stage companies in Indonesia for a long time. So we were investors in Kopi, in Ula, and I think we saw that it extends to the early stage as well in Indonesia. And so I'm in Jakarta every month, regularly, spending time with founders, spending time with other investors and people in the ecosystem. And I'm really amazed at what, the level of activity, the level of innovation, and the amount of entrepreneurial zeal that there is in the country. In some ways, I feel Indonesia is at par, maybe ahead of India in certain sectors. In others, it's probably 3 to 4 years behind. But I think that shows the explosive amount of opportunity that we see in the next few years, which is why we're so excited. When you look at the overall situation right now, in the macro sense, it's affected early stage a little bit less compared to late stage. For two reasons. One is just the valuation is at a relatively in absolute terms much lower. And the innovation that we see at the early stage is slightly different than the growth stage. So in early stage, we're looking at companies which will reach growth stage 3, 4, 5 years out. So they will be less impacted by the overall situation today. And that's why we've actually not seen a very, very, we've seen a bit of slowdown on investing, but not to the extent on the growth side. We have been actively investing across early stage, even in the US in the last 6 months. So I think that shows the kind of opportunities. And frankly, this has happened in every downturn. The best companies and the best founders find a way to really innovate and thrive in such situations. And those are the kind of founders we really, really are excited to work with.
Okay. So in terms of category, what kind of startups that you are looking for? Is it the same like Ula, which is targeting the SME, or you also find interesting in deep tech or in agriculture and different kind of areas for B Capital?
You touched upon almost all the areas that we find interesting.
Okay.
But let me say this way. We've seen a big boom in Indonesia in two specific areas in the last 2 to 3 years. One is around the SME and the small businesses, which is where Ula operates. And I think Ula is for some of the larger categories. We see that also happening in other areas, in other industries. And we've taken a very vertical approach, which is to say, look, can we focus on every large industry that contributes to Indonesia's GDP? And can we look at companies and founders that are building to either get rid of inefficiencies, get rid of supply chain problems, get rid of financial products and lending or something else? And those are the kind of founders that we want to work with. So that is a playbook that we're trying to replicate into other sectors. Hopefully in the next month or so, we will have some new investment to talk about. And I think we're quite excited about that. The second is around financial services and fintech. Again, with Indonesia, the way, the government and the regulator has been very, very progressive in terms of scoping out and building out fintech for the Indonesia market. We've made one investment from this fund called Finku, which is personal management product, and they're obviously expanding from that. But I think Sham and Ronaldo have built a very interesting product for the market. They're working very, very closely with banks and other people in the regulatory system to make sure that innovation goes hand in hand with how the government and the regulator is thinking about it. That's what will really drive a lot of the activity. So I think those are two sectors that we've seen already get to a point, whether it's B2B commerce, whether it's fintech. Now, if you look at the next segments, I think agri-tech is something which I'm very excited about. I've invested in agri-tech in India before. I see some very similar things in Indonesia. I see some very different things, and that's to do with how farming and the kind of agriculture that's done in Indonesia. But I think technology has a very central role to play because some of the challenges are similar. So the average farmer has slightly larger land holdings in Indonesia, are slightly better off in Indonesia compared to India. But the problem that they get to their wages, getting more from the same amount of crop being done, and then getting access to a new set of customers, only technology can solve that. So we've spent quite a bit of time in agri-tech, and I think we will continue to do that. And then I think the last thing is around consumer enablers. So things around logistics, supply chain, warehousing, anything that solves the challenge of commerce and works hand in hand with commerce companies and e-commerce players in the country. I think those are areas that we feel need to get built out in Indonesia in a very first principles manner. Some of it has happened, some of it will happen. So those are the 4 sectors we're spending the most amount of time on, I'd say.
Okay, interesting, because the category that you are mentioned is really massive in Indonesia in terms of growth, and there's a lot of new startups that cater to that services. But I want to know about what kind of startups, early stage startups that you are excited when you receive cold email or pitch deck. Is it something that really on trend, or the one that really happening right now on hype, or you find founder background more popular for your opinion instead of the business model? How do you find the right startups to be involved in the B Capital ecosystem?
That's a very good question. That's actually a really great question.
Yeah.
I think for me, and it's a very personal approach, I think for me, what excites me is when a founder writes about why they're doing a certain, why they're tackling a certain challenge.
Right.
Story and why it relates to what either they've done before or a problem that they've seen.
Yeah.
Because in early stage, so much is about the founder and the founding team and the approach that they're taking. The business model is important. But I also know from experience that what someone starts out with and where they end will almost always go through some sort of change. So I think there are some markets which we're like, look, we just don't want to do it. And then, but if we really like the founder, we have a conversation. We say, look, we really like you. We'd like to back you in something, but maybe not this. And we let them, and sometimes for founders, it's a very personal thing. For them, they're going after a difficult market. It's because either they see an opportunity or it's a problem that they've gone after, that they've seen themselves. And I don't like to obviously dissuade founders or discourage founders from doing something else. But I think what I try and tell founders, look, I would really like to work with you. If you feel this is what you want to do, I really hope, I wish you the best of luck, and let me know how I can help. But that market is not something we're going after. But the founder is still trying to figure things out, and it's a market which we're okay with. Not every question has to be solved. Not all the answers need to be there. I actually like working with founders, and I'm saying, look, we'll figure this together. But again, I really like you, because what I realize is there are some markets which are, no, you don't touch them. But the best founders will figure out and navigate tough markets and the right opportunity. And I think those are the kind of founders you want to back. The business model, I think, is important. It's less important at the growth stage, because there, the business model is set. You already know what you're doing. And then it's a question of executing.
Yeah.
Early stage, there's no right answer, because sometimes it could be a great founder, an okay market and some traction, or it can be a great founder, but a market which I don't really believe in. And then we have a conversation. So that's the beauty about early stage, because you get to have, there's no one approach. You can have it across so many different ways. And that makes every opportunity different and unique from the other.
Okay, interesting. Because why I asked this question, a few angel investors and also a VC in general is lately looking for background in terms of the founder itself, other than other sectors, other related categories. So it's interesting that you mentioned that the background of the founder, it's really important, but also if they can cater the right services and the right time, it can grow from there, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things which I think is happening in Indonesia already.
Yeah.
Is the founders are coming from companies, other startups that they've worked at, which have seen. That was not the case 3-4 years ago in India. That happened maybe 5-6 years back, right? And those kind of founders actually who've seen scale happen in tech companies also know other problems. Those are founders I love working with, because they have such unique insights, which does not necessarily come without that sort of experience. So founder background is definitely the most important thing.
Yes. So Karan, what is B Capital next plan in the 2023? Is it going to be more investment, or are you still formulating or minimizing the funding for next year? What is your plan for B Capital?
I think this was an important year for us, 2022.
Okay.
Because we're building out the early stage practice in India and Southeast Asia. And I think we're very pleased with what we've been able to get done. But I think there's a lot more we can do. And we've been very fortunate to have really good partners and friends in the ecosystem who've come out and invited us to work with them. And we're very humbled by the kind of response that we get, and very grateful for it, honestly. So I think that sets us up very nicely for 2023. And we're going through some of that planning, but I can definitely tell you 2023 is going to be a very a landmark year for B Capital in Southeast Asia, because we're going to be more active. We have seen the kind of companies, the kind of founders, and also just the ecosystem develop. And I think that gives us a lot of comfort and a lot of encouragement to say, look, we want to now do more of this and do it better in 2023. So you will definitely see us be more active. I'm there every 4 to 5 weeks. That'll continue to be the case because I think there's nothing like spending time on the ground to give you an understanding of what's actually happening. You cannot do it from another country. So I'm excited about spending time. We've got colleagues who are also spending time in the country and in the region. I think for us, the areas of focus will be what I mentioned. So I'll just repeat it. It's around B2B, fintech, consumer enablers, agri, and possibly areas that I think will come up, healthcare being one of them in the next few years, not necessarily 2023. And just as the overall digitization continues to ramp up in Indonesia, I think that will give us even more opportunities. And the more founders that are coming from larger companies will give us a better sense of the kind of investments that we would like to do. And it's the ecosystem growing, which we want to try and develop and do more of. I must say, we did an event in Indonesia early, I think it was early November in Jakarta, where it was called the Emerging Angels event, where we brought about 50 current and potential angels together. We had some very marquee speakers, that were working with us and are partnering with us, and to really talk about what their journey with angel investing is and how they should think about that. And the reason for us to do that was, as an ecosystem player, I think you want to build and develop relationships for yourself, but also for others. That's how an ecosystem is. And we had about 70, 80 people in total. We had our full team in Indonesia and from Singapore. I think that shows us the kind of interest there is in the region, and for B Capital to be a significant player. And I think that's clearly is what driving a lot of our interest in 2023. I'm just telling you of some of these things that we've done and we would like to do more of. Because we want to engage with founders on the ground. We want to engage with our partners on the ground. We want to bring new perspectives to the ecosystem. Hopefully we can do that in a better way next year.
Okay. Looking forward for more good news from B Capital. You guys are doing so far so good, right, in Indonesia?
I think we're doing good. Well, it's actually for others to say how we're doing. But I think for us, it's an area of deep commitment and focus and importance. As a global investor, we think that the US, China, India, Southeast Asia are large drivers of tech innovation anywhere. We want to be significant players in each of those regions. Like I said, this year was an important year for us to set the base and really build on that next year. And that's why I'm very excited to speak on this platform. And thank you. I think the messaging that we want to bring out is very important, and not about why we're different or why we're better. It's not about that. I think our unique perspective is what I want to share with founders, with other people in the ecosystem, because we think we can bring something meaningful to the table for founders, for other investors, for partners. And that's what, being on daily social really and platforms like you really allow us to do. So again, thank you for that.
Thank you again for giving us the opportunity for Indonesian startup ecosystem to get to know you better. Maybe after this, you will receive more cold email from Indonesian startup founders. Hopefully.
I hope so. Look, our job is to meet as many founders as we can.
Yes.
That's how you meet the best founders. And it also gets you, thinking about the kind of innovation that you may not have thought about.
Yes.
So those are the that's the kind of approach that we want to try and build out. And I think ultimately, if we can do more of reaching out to founders, we can do more of reaching out to people in the ecosystem. We would like to do that. And not everything needs to be about us. I think we want to make the ecosystem in Indonesia as best as possible.
Okay. Thank you so much, Karan. Hopefully we can meet in person, right? When you visit Jakarta, probably, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. Look, very much.
Okay. Yay. Thank you so much for your time. And hopefully Indonesian startup founders can get to know you better and can contact you after this, and you get more cold email and pitch deck that interested for the B Capital group. Thank you so much, Karan, for your time. I'll see you soon, okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Jenny.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.